Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. Apologies for the delayed start. A lot of us are in multiple committees at once these days at this point in the legislature, so it's hard to get everybody in the same room at the same time. Before we get started with the agenda, we'll begin with committee introductions, and we'll start with House Chairman Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good Monday morning, everybody. My name is Chris Chiazzo. I represent House District 28, beautiful, sunny, warm, bright, cheery, happy West Scarborough, Maine.
Okay, Senator Farron.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair. My name's Senator Brad Farron. I live in Norridge Walk, and I have the distinct pleasure to represent the fine citizens of the majority of Somerset County, as well as the town of Rome and Kennebec County. Thanks for everybody for being here on this beautiful sunny Monday morning. There you go.
Great. Senator Hickman.
Good morning. I'm Craig Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, including my hometown of Winthrop. Happy Monday, everyone.
Representative Kinney.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Kinney. I represent House District 99, which are 9 towns in Western Waldo County.
Okay, Representative McCrate.
Good morning. I'm Jay McCrate, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick in the House.
Representative Supika.
Good morning. I'm Laura Supika, and I represent District 126, which includes a portion of Bangor.
Representative Dolph.
Good morning. Representative Joseanne Dolph from District 115 in the beautiful West Mountains of Maine.
Representative Tuttle.
John Tuttle, District 18, part of Sanford in lovely York County, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Representative Riley.
Hi, Representative Riley. I represent House District 34, which is part of Westbrook.
Okay, Representative Wood.
Good morning. I'm Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland.
Okay, Representative Corey.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Corey. I represent House District 25, which is part of Wyndham.
Okay, and my name is Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the Senate. With us today, we have our committee clerk, Karen Montel, and our committee analyst, Sam Prower. So I guess before we get started, just to make a couple of announcements. I think we've had to move around our schedule tomorrow a little bit. I don't know if it's official yet, but we have the gambling bills. We had them scheduled earlier, but because of a conflict with the Gambling Control Board meeting, we're going to bump those to later. And also, given the new budget information, we may have a briefing from DVM in the morning, 10 potentially. But I think it's still a work in progress, but I just want people to know kind of in advance what the schedule is likely to look like. With the budget stuff, we're going to move around a little bit, and with session Wednesday, that takes away one of our days. That is Wednesday, right? This week? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess with that, we can get to the agenda today. We have 4 bills. Beforehand, we do have someone from Bablo. There was an information request from committee members on, I guess, tracking. I think, Sam, was it tracking alcohol or?
Yeah, I believe it was about the tracking of and sales of and like monitoring of liquor in the state.
Okay. So we've got, it looks like, both Director Minio and Deputy Poulin here. So we'll bring them both in and they can just briefly give us some information on that.
Good morning.
Morning, Director.
Hi, how's everybody doing? I'm kind of bouncing back and forth this morning. I apologize to the committee. I'd like just to tee this up for Deputy Director Tim Poulin. He's closest to the action here on what we do, and I'm going to ask him to take you through the what we call the value chain. Sorry.
Yep.
There we go. Technical glitch there. So we were asked by the committee to comment on and report to the committee on how we track and what we use in the way of traceability. I will say very clearly that the very nature of the alcohol business being mandated to use three-tier system, that's every state across the country, not just control states, and also in particular control states. The very nature of that requires us to have a traceability requirement or a mandate. So every step of the way, every phase, every step of the supply chain, from manufacturer who we buy from, or importer, right through the wholesale tier, which is the state. Pine State does that on our behalf, and right on through to the retailer and the consumer is all tracked. So we have record of that. It's transparent. There's a reporting system, and it's clear to anyone at any point. They'd be able to see where a product is, and certainly how there had been any kind of a financial transaction that may have taken place concerning that product. I understand this does not have anything to do, at least not now, on excise tax collection, but Tim could actually comment on that as well. So with that, if it pleases the committee, I'll turn it over to Tim Poole. Tim, go ahead.
Great, thanks, Director. And welcome to Deputy Director Tim Poulin.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to give you some of this information. So as Director Minio indicated, I mean, there really are two separate processes that we use for tracking all alcohol in Maine. So the spirit side of the business, and then the beer and wine side of the business. So I'm going to touch first on the spirits business, and we refer to an inventory management and tracking system. So Bablo staff, which is myself and our pricing manager, and the staff at Pine State Spirits, monitor inventory in the warehouse constantly. While suppliers and their main-based brokers are primarily responsible for inventory replenishment, it is really a joint effort to ensure that we have the right, that we have product availability, especially at key selling periods during the year. You know, when we have those, this year especially, I hope that we have all those tourists coming back to into the state to spend their dollars here. We want to make sure that our on-premise establishments and our agency liquor stores have what they need to meet those demands. Transparency of our inventory in our bailment warehouse is essential to sound business practices. And as a reminder to the committee, all the inventory in the warehouse is the property of the supplier, not of the Bureau. So here's a breakdown of how we manage our inventory and we track it in our system. So the initial step, of course, is the product is presented to the State Liquor and Lottery Commission for approval. Once approved, the supplier must provide inventory to our designated warehouse within 30 days of the listing. Our contractor, Pine State Spirits, adds that product to the inventory management system that includes all the details about the products, including the supplier name, the broker who brokers it here in Maine, the product description, bottle size, case size, proof of the product, location in the warehouse, and there are likely 3 locations in the warehouse. The pick line for, because every product can be picked, what we refer to as by the each, so every product can be picked by an individual bottle, it can be picked by a case, and then where there's additional inventory to replenish those 2 pick lines, those are the 3 locations in the warehouse that are designated in the system. Often the supplier, and I'd say often 99% of the time, the supplier will send us an advanced shipping notice, referred to as an ASN, that provides the details of when and how much is expected to be delivered to the warehouse. When the product arrives at the warehouse, pallets of products are received, validated by scanning a barcode on the case, and added to the inventory in the system. Product is moved to the designated pick areas or the storage location, as I mentioned moments ago, and then whatever the inventory that's been validated is added to the system to reflect what we have now on hand to be sold to agency liquor stores. So we also provide a portal by which agency liquor stores can order the product. The portal, once the orders are put in the system by the agency store, it generates pick orders to the warehouse. As the orders are picked by the warehouse staff and closed, the inventory is updated into the system. And of course, then they're packaged up for deliveries, put on the trucks for deliveries out to the stores. So once that occurs, and we refer to when it leaves the warehouse, it's a depletion from the inventory. So twice a month, Pine State Spirits on our behalf sends purchase orders to the suppliers to account for the inventory depletions over the previous 2 weeks. So at that point, the suppliers can go and they have access to our inventory tracking system. So they can go in at any time and look at who bought product, when and where, and how much at any moment in time. And so when they then return an invoice to us, they may have identified some discrepancy in what they believed was what we received and what we depleted from the warehouse. There's breakage that occurs. There's breakage that is what we refer to as a blind breakage, where it's inside of a case and it's not identified until maybe even the agency store receives it and opens the case and sees a bottle has been broken. Oftentimes you see that because once it's liquid and it would leak out of the cardboard case. So there's some reconciliation that has to happen for any of those types of discrepancies. The supplier sends us back an invoice, and then we pay those invoices. So that's really how we're tracking everything. At any moment in time, I can go in and log into the portal and look by. I live in Sydney. I can go and find out Annie's Market in Sydney, how much they bought of every SKU that's on their shelf. We don't have of course, have visibility in what they actually sell out the front door to consumers. But if they're ordering more of a particular product, we're assuming that that's going out the door appropriately to a customer. Of course, we have reselling agents. I think we license around 200, but the bulk of them are, RSVP down in Poland and RSVP down in Poland as well. Resell to bars and restaurants that are two biggest, but there's about 15 that really supply the entire state, generally speaking. So their inventory is going to be much larger in their locations because they're selling a lot more product, especially during peak selling periods to our on-premise partners. So really that's how we track and manage inventory, and it works very effectively, unless there are inventory issues or shipment problems. And of course, we experienced a lot of that during the COVID period because of increased sales nationwide, especially on some products like ready-to-drink products. They didn't have enough juice to fill bottles, or they couldn't find enough bottles to fill with the juice they might have had. And then there was trucking problems where they couldn't actually find drivers to drive trucks to get the product to the locations around the country. But overall, it's a pretty seamless process. It's very transparent, and all of our suppliers, partners, and brokers who support those suppliers have access to that information at all times. So I'll pause there, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond to them, but I can briefly touch on how we manage tracking beer and wine in the state, if that's helpful to the committee.
Thanks, Deputy Poulin. Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Poulin, I just wondered, do you do any kind of auditing of, it sounds like you have a really good inventory system, but do you do any auditing of either the inventory or the shipping to know, the accuracy?
Yes. So, of course, by contract, Pine State Spirits must have an annual audit of their activities by a independent third-party audit company, and they use the one here based in Augusta. So that looks at making sure that Pine State has appropriately priced product in their system, sold that at the price required by the Bureau and the Commission. Suppliers on occasion will ask for an audit of inventory, but that doesn't happen very frequently. And matter of fact, I've only known it once to occur. If there's a change in ownership of a product, then there is an audit that is conducted, because if the product in the warehouse is going to, in some cases where the supplier assigns it as a vendor of record, so basically a company here in Maine, for example, will have ownership of the product and it's being moved to another one. There's a whole process by which we have to make sure that the person who owns the product is being compensated. And so we have to do an inventory check and an audit of that. But yes, there are audits that occur at least annually on the activities that happen in and out of product coming into the warehouse and out of the warehouse.
Good. If I can have just one more question. You had mentioned that, you know, once the product is sold to the retail customer, you don't have any idea of who it's getting sold to. But then you were talking about the reselling agents. Do you have information about that? What restaurants and bars are being sold to?
Yes, by statute, the 15th of every month, all reselling agents have to supply us with what they sold, the products that they sold, and the quantity, and to what location they sold it to. So we have visibility of that.
Okay, thank you.
And Director, so everyone kind of, it's who may not have used the term a lot, reselling agents are the ones who supply restaurants and bars, basically, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so the reselling agents, they have software that they've installed, and then they track where the sales go, and right to restaurants essentially.
Right, and then they report it back to us every month.
Okay. Representative Supika.
Thank you. So I think that the question was about beer and wine, because beer and wine is different from liquor. How, I know you said you were going to touch on it briefly, but my understanding is the question was, how do we track beer and wine? And is it very similar to liquor?
It is not. So
okay.
I'm happy to talk about that. Is that?
Yeah, because my understanding is that that's where the inquiry was, is that people wanted, because we as a state own the liquor, right? We purchase the liquor and then we sell it. Like
no,
we bring it in? No?
No, the product in the warehouse belongs to the supplier. It's a bailment warehouse. Okay. So the only time the state takes title to it is when it's on the truck being delivered to the agency store. And once it's received by the agency store, then we no longer own it. The agency store does. So it's a very limited amount of time. When it
comes to wine and beer, right?
Yeah, yes, correct. So it is different. Beer and wine wholesalers purchase it from the out-of-state suppliers, who we refer to as a COA. So it is purchased by we have about 20 wholesalers in the state that do that. So I'll go ahead and just touch on that. So our out-of-state suppliers and importers, referred to as COAs, must register all products as part of their required licensure with the Bureau prior to selling those products into the state. So the registration process includes the certificate of label approval that they receive from the federal government agency, the TTB, that provides all the detail on the products. And they must assign the sale of the product to a main wholesaler. So they can pick whatever wholesaler they choose to use to distribute it. But generally we have certain houses. So Anheuser-Busch houses, Millicor houses, those are basically the two big ones. And then then they're assigned according to that, most likely. They also have to post their pricing of which they're going to sell the product to the wholesaler. And then the wholesaler must accept the assignment for distribution. And then they in turn must post their pricing in which they're going to sell it to both on and off premise establishments. So that's all done as part of if it's a brand new out-of-state manufacturer, it's a brand new thing, but at renewal, they have to do that, or whenever they're going to move a new product into the state. So in terms of the Bureau tracking that product is we assign or we provide to the wholesalers a series of purchase order numbers. So that's the way that we track for taxing purposes product that is being moved throughout the state. So they provide it, we provide it to them, and then they provide those PO numbers to their suppliers, who in turn will invoice them back for those products. And so the invoices come back very detailed with the product, how the product is coming to them, whether it's, you know, in 6 packs or 12 packs or 30 packs or kegs, whatever the size of it is, and then it converts all of that product to a gallonage. And so, and then the product is received by the wholesaler, and they distribute it as they need to throughout the state. And so on the 15th of every month, the in-state wholesalers and the COAs, the out-of-state manufacturers, must provide to the Bureau all the details about what was provided to the wholesaler in the previous month. So whether or not the product was sold at all, as soon as it lands in the state, it is subject to excise tax. And so we're receiving all this information from the invoices and the POs that we receive, and then we reconcile to determine the correct amount of excise tax. And so part of the registration process we use in the validation and the reconciliation of the excise tax, because we do have occasion where we have products that are on purchase orders and invoices that are not registered with the Bureau. And so we have to go back and backtrack that and get the wholesale and the supplier to correct those problems. And that happens frequently, that we have product that is unregistered, or we have missing POs. And so all of that information is necessary in order to make sure that the state is collecting the right amount of excise tax on products that have been sold properly in the state of Maine. It's a cumbersome process the way we manage it currently, and we're hoping to have a new system in place in the next couple of years to resolve that manual process that we use. But is our way of tracking what's in the state, who sells it, and at what price.
Representative Speaker, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I did. I was like, who do I direct it to? Thank you so much. Oh, okay. So thank you so much for explaining that. You kind of touched upon what I was really curious about, which is how do we generate those PO numbers? And you said it's a manual process, so we just look at the last number and we just write a new number down.
Yep.
And then how does the information get conveyed to you on the 15th? Do they just send you an email or send the organization an email, or is it through some sort of computer portal system where they send that information back to you? How, like, is it, because you said it's all manual?
Yes. So we now receive a piece of paper for every invoice and PO that comes in. And so, after the 15th of every month, we're taking the pieces of paper that come from the out-of-state manufacturer and the wholesaler and matching them up. So the PO, what's that?
May I have a follow-up on that? Just because you mentioned you're hoping to make it less cumbersome. I don't know if it's too premature to ask, but like, what is it? What kind of system are you looking towards to try to help streamline that?
Right. So we want to eliminate the paper process. So it would be, it's all data. So it's data that can be given to us electronically to validate against that PO. So the invoice will have a PO on it, the PO that they issue. So that's how we would do that. But it's all data, and it can be handled that way. So we eliminate the need for paper.
Okay.
There'll still be auditing needed to do because there are all kinds of exceptions to whether excise has to be collected on certain products. And so there's all kinds of exceptions, but that's what I want my staff to be able to work on, is the exceptions and not, 20 wholesalers and, 600 suppliers.
So Okay, I think I have an idea. It sounds like there'll be like an RFP for some sort of system that'll be able to like help you manage that data in the future that we're hoping for as a state.
Correct. And
Okay.
again, it's, we're always, sometimes we're having to look for these anomalies in why things don't match up properly. And oftentimes that is lack of a registration. The PO was issued, we generated a PO number. Oftentimes there are groups of PO numbers that we issue to the wholesalers, and we have missing PO numbers. So we have to track down why are those POs missing. And there's, always some rationale for why they're missing, but we have to account for them because we need to know what happened to that so that we can accurately assess their excise tax.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to break that down. I think I haven't working in a store and working with beer and wine. I have an understanding of the paper nightmare of POs and kind of what you're dealing with right now. And I know what numbers I've read off those numbers. So thank you for explaining all that to the committee. Great.
Thanks. Any other questions on this? We just wanted to give a kind of a broad overview of how it works. I know that was a request. All right, seeing no further questions, thanks to both Tim and Greg for coming in today and giving us an overview, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon. So thank you both.
Thank you. Take care.
Yep. Okay, so that kind of took care of the information requests I think that we had for this. So I think with that, we can move to LD 939. And Sam, I know you've already kind of done the analysis on this, but can you give us a brief overview if you, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to pull the bill analysis back up on the screen and just go through the summary?
Sure, that would be great if you don't mind. Yeah.
This one has a lot of pieces too, so that might make it just a little easier. All right, can everybody see?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, LD 939, as I mentioned, had quite a few pieces, and they're summarized here. So I'm just going to read through them, and if anyone wants me to stop at any point, just let me know. So this bill makes the following changes to the Maine Medical Use of Marijuana Act. First, it allows caregivers to employ assistants who are between 18 and 21 years of age if they are also a member of the family of the caregiver, and it clarifies that assistants hired by caregivers, registered dispensaries, marijuana testing facilities, and manufacturing facilities must otherwise be 21 years of age or older. Second, it allows registered caregivers and dispensaries to transfer to and accept from another registered caregiver or a dispensary an unlimited amount of marijuana plants and harvested marijuana in a wholesale transaction. And I actually just want to pause here for a second too, because in reviewing the bill and receiving some additional input, there is an additional section of statute that would have to be changed, that the bill is not in the original draft if the committee wants to allow dispensaries to engage in these transfers. And there's also a conflicting provision that would probably benefit from being cleaned up as well. So if the committee wants to hear more about that, I can walk you through that as well. But it really is just, I think it was like kind of like a technical miss. Like it changed substance, it's another piece that's not included in the bill language. So moving on. Third, this bill allows caregivers to accept a digital image of a written certification for the purposes of initiating a transaction for harvested marijuana, and requires the caregiver to verify the written certification in person before transferring any harvested marijuana to the qualifying patient. Fourth, it allows registration identification cards and criminal history record checks to be valid for 1 year, regardless of employment status. Fifth, it adds a fee structure for a caregiver cultivating based upon plant canopy. Sixth, it repeals the prohibition on marketing marijuana plants or harvested marijuana to any adult use marijuana market within the same sign, advertisement, or marketing material. Seventh, It removes the provision allowing the Department of Administrative and Financial Services to adopt rules allowing advertising or marketing using location-based services if the marketing is a mobile device application installed on a device by the owner of the device who is 21 years of age or older, if it includes a permanent and easy opt-out feature, and provides instead that the department may adopt rules allowing advertising or marketing using location-based services if such marketing includes a permanent and easy opt-out feature and the owner of the device is 21 years of age or older. 8, it changes the period of time registered caregivers, registered dispensaries, marijuana testing facilities, and manufacturing facilities must keep records from 7 years to 2 years. And 9th, it repeals the requirement that registered caregivers, registered dispensaries, marijuana testing facilities, and manufacturing facilities have annual audits by an independent third party. And I believe, yes, so that's each piece of the bill. And as I mentioned during the original work session, so, some of these changes were addressed in bills this committee has previously voted on. So that would be like 5 with the fee structure for cultivating based on plant canopy. And I think the registry, the identification cards was also brought up in other bills as well, but that hasn't been voted on yet. So are there any questions or additional needs for refresher?
Great, thank you, Sam. Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Sam. Could you just go into a little bit what you were saying about number 2, what the concern was there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, number 2, and just because I just went through a lot, that is the provision again that allows registered caregivers and dispensaries to transfer and accept from another caregiver registered dispensary an unlimited amount of marijuana plants and harvested marijuana in a wholesale transaction. And I was just saying that the drafting of the bill included the section that refers to caregivers, but there's also a section in the statute that refers to dispensaries with more or less the same language that would have to be amended to allow dispensaries to engage in this in the unlimited transfers as well. So yeah, I think it was just something that was missed in the original draft. And if that isn't changed, then I don't think that the summary of the bill as intended is accurate, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Brower, I have a question about sort of the last item in the summary. It's with regard to sort of the annual independent third-party audits. What I've heard is that there's no real description of what these audits are or would be. Is that the case, or do you know if there's a description?
So there isn't like a definition of it. I think that this maybe came up at the last work session too, like who, there isn't really a definition of who the third party is supposed to be, other than an independent third party. And let me pull up the statute quickly, just to make sure there's nothing else I wanted to cover with that. But it seemed like there was confusion from the industry about like who the third parties are supposed to be.
Okay, so no real description of what it is that they do or who the third party is. And then just
it's basically, I think in 2430 G it looks like, but it's vague, like you said. Yeah.
Would you like me to pull it up so everybody can see, or is it not necessary? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So as Senator Lucchini mentioned, we're looking at 2430G and subsection 1 paragraph A, subparagraph 3. And so this is the requirement to complete an annual audit of business transactions of the registered caregiver, dispensary, marijuana testing facility, or manufacturing facility by an independent third party. And I did, while this was being discussed last time, look, and I did not find further guidance about, at least in statute, about what the independent third party should, who they should be, or what the annual audit of business transactions should include beyond what's written here.
Okay, great. And just lastly, so the second to last item in that summary where it talks about sort of these record keeping requirements in terms of, time and length, do we know how that compares to other industries? I know that, for tax periods, it's, generally 7 years on taxes, but not all business. Do you know what I mean? Records. And I think that's more of an advisory, do you know what I mean, type thing. But where
I don't have particular information, like specific information on what we require of other industries. I'm happy to look into that though.
Okay. So,
other questions? Oh yeah, Representative Corey.
I don't really have any other questions. I'm generally okay with this bill. I don't know if that's putting this out there too early on this. I don't like the co-advertising of medical and recreational marijuana. I just think that sends the wrong message if we're going to, not co-locate stores. I don't think we should co-locate our advertising to. One is a recreational, substance, and the other one is what we're calling a medicine and everything. So I don't think we should mix those two things together. And I know that I heard that from people in the industry as well. With regard to the, length of records being retained, I certainly think that's probably negotiable between, 7 and 2 years. And I'd love to hear what the committee, has on that. And then number 9, I would be sort of very comfortable with just getting rid of that requirement altogether, since we can't really define what it is. I think that the real benefit of this bill is that wholesale requirement, because I think that, some people are probably really good at, growing cannabis, but maybe aren't as good in those other business areas where they have to, sell some of that product directly to patients themselves, where I think that there's probably people that are more adept at, getting patients the medicine that they need for their specific medical needs. So I would love to hear, again, what the committee thinks on that record making requirement. Otherwise, at the end of that conversation, I'm willing to make an ought to pass as amended on this bill. Thank you.
Are you making that motion? Sorry, right now? Or
sure, I'll make it. I'll put the record keeping requirement at 4 years instead of the 7 and not the 2 as suggested in the bill. And I'm perfectly willing to amend my motion from there, but no co-location of advertising. And I just want to remove that last item from the summary where it, asks for the independent, third-party audits to be removed. I guess I'm not looking to remove that. I'm just saying I don't see why we need the independent third-party audit. So I guess my only two amendments would be the no co-location of advertising and just amending from 7 years to 4 years.
okay, so there's a motion out there. Is there a second? Does anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second for now.
Okay, seconded by Representative Kinney. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the motion by Representative Corey. I have a hard time with the audits until there's a track and trace process in place. Even if they are a little clunky, I think we need to have some mechanism in order to find a way to handle the product. My hope was that we could maybe carry this over, allow the groups to come together and try and work something out in the interim, or get the track and trace system ironed out in place, and so that the audits wouldn't be necessary at all. You know, in regards to the record keeping, I think it's twofold, right? I think what we heard from OMP was that the staff requirements don't allow them basically to audit 3,000 providers in a year, and that record retention basically gives them the ability to spread out those reviews and those inspections over a period of time. So I would want to hear from OMP what kind of staffing levels they would require in order to reduce that time frame, or come up with something that would be, you know, I certainly think, you know, maybe 7 is too much, but try and find that sweet spot in the middle that's not onersome. 7 years, you know, I mean, that's taxes, there's other record keeping we have to keep for that amount of time. I don't know how onerous it is, but again, I think that's something that could be worked out over the summer with you know, a group of people talking. So I can't support an ought to pass as amended, even as amended. I think there's just this, I don't think the bill's ready for prime time yet. So I can't support that motion.
Representative Chiazza, did you want to bring in the director? I'm sorry about any of that, or you'd mentioned about the records, or is that,
yeah, I mean, if
that's helpful.
Yeah, if he's free to come in, I mean, he can bring clarity to it. But my understanding was that if he wants to elaborate on that, I'm fine to hear what his thoughts were, just to confirm that. So I'm not misspeaking.
I think I see them. Okay, there he is. All right, we'll rename you. Welcome, Director Gunderson. Did you hear the question on the records requirement?
Yeah, I certainly did. And Representative Chiazzo is correct in our concerns with a compliance team of 10 individuals, a medical program with over 3,000 registrants. And I would imagine in a year or two, we'll have hundreds of adult use applicants, where I could do some projections and back of the napkin math to figure out what it would look like. But it would certainly be well above 2 years in order to get to all those registrants and be able to review the records. 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, I'm not quite sure. I'm sure we could back down off the 7, but we would be happy to work with industry over the summer if that's the direction we go, to figure out what the right number is for sure.
Thanks. Representative Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have some concerns with the record keeping, because part of that section is keep the books, and I believe that includes your tax records, which do have to be kept for the 7 years. So as a business, I mean, are they trying to not keep their records on the tax side of things? That does concern me a bit. I'm not sure 4 years. I had in my notes at least 5, but I think we do need to have a little more information on this, at least on that part. I had concerns as well. Just one or question, I guess, in section 11, subsection 3, the criminal history record check valid for 1 year. What was the purpose of 1 year versus, I guess there was no actual validity of or length of validity for that criminal check previously. So I guess I'm wondering where that number came from and why. And I think that was those are probably my only 2 real concerns at the moment.
Director, do you have any insight on the criminal piece that Representative Kinney just raised?
Yeah, I think that was in the language where they were attempting to move to the 1/2 card system, essentially. And the concern that we have with that is we know that criminal history record checks are only good for a moment in time. They're actually can't be good for a year. But we did provide the committee with the language to be able to achieve what I think they're trying to get after, is that essentially that one card system, just with better language.
Right. And yeah, I appreciate the draft. And I think that's something we may be able to move forward with, perhaps in a different bill this session, because it seems to be widely supported from the industry. Representative Supika.
Thank you very much. I was interested in seeing if we could invite the bill sponsor in, if they're available, to speak to the conversation so far, and if they kind of see an opportunity for like movement, or like what has been discussed so far, as like maybe like getting the parties to work together to find some common language. Fingers crossed. So.
Yeah,
I was wondering if we could invite him in.
Yeah, we can bring in, there he is. Yep, Representative Pluker. And can you ask him a question, Representative? Or
yeah, I wanted to invite you in to see, like, you've been listening to the analysis and some of the proposals so far, and to see like if you see kind of like concerns, you know, about like, one of the issues was raised by dropping it down to 2 years, like, you know, it would put this like huge cost on the program, and then make it like we wouldn't actually be able to follow up. If you could speak to that, and also if you see any kind of opportunity where we could maybe continue to work on this bill with the different partners involved, and like if you'd have interest in that, and like kind of moving forward, possibly carrying it over so that we can like kind of work towards some sort of consensus.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm getting all sorts of texts here about what I think people are thinking, but we're in support of the motion that Representative Corey submitted. Moving the record keeping to 3 or 4 years is fine with us. It sounded like the department was able to get to everybody within 3 years, and that would just give us a little bit of relief in terms of record keeping, but also give the department to get the job done they want to get done. This doesn't affect tax record keeping in any way, shape, or form. We would that law would still be in place, and people would still, the growers would still be in compliance with that. In terms of the no co-located ads, we're all right with that as well. We understand the industry is, there are people on both sides of that conversation. We're perfectly fine with that aspect of it.
And Representative Pluker, can you tell us
yes.
who us is that you're talking about?
Yes, I feel like I'm representing the growers. There's the community that I've been working with.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yep. And was there another question I didn't answer? Oh, in terms of carryover, we're very happy with the current motion as it stands, if people were able to support that.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Did that cover your questions, Representative Supika? Good. Okay.
It did. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions for Representative Pluker? Representative Chiazzo, did you have a question for the sponsor while he's in? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Pluker. In the bill you're proposing in section 322 MRSA subsection 2423-A, basically with the transfer of the wholesaling of product, you're proposing to increase from 75% to 100%.
That's right.
How married are you to that? Because I have some real concerns about that without or until we get some kind of local authorization, if you will, for citing those facilities.
For citing grow facilities?
Mm-hmm. In my mind, if you transfer 100%, you end up becoming a cultivation facility, not a medical facility. Under the current statute, those facilities can go in, basically, my understanding is without, in certain sizes, without local authorization or local zoning approval. So are you comfortable removing that unlimited transfer to keep it in statute at 75?
That is the core of one of the cores of the bill is giving people opportunity to become those cultivators. And currently, I guess I'm not familiar with the statute that says that people can grow without permission from the community. So but that is the intent, is that people can become farmers and can just be farmers without having to worry about retail sale and that sort of thing. Just as I'm a farmer, just as we support our local ag and we support our local communities in terms of that, I would continue to support the ability of people to grow and in my point of view, the right to grow, and then we should properly regulate the sales and how that happens. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two things from my standpoint on this. So number one, like with regard to record keeping and everything else, like, you know, as a business owner, or not a business, but I work for myself, you know, the advisement is that I hold, you know, my tax records for 7 years. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to, but that's just the general advisement of like the IRS and my accountants and everything else. It's not a practice that you have to follow, but you probably should if you expect that you could be audited at all. So it's not a law. Number two, I think that the real advantage to going to 100% wholesale model is that I think we're getting medical marijuana and recreational marijuana sort of confused here a little bit, and I can kind of explain that. So if you're a recreational medical or recreational adult use marijuana cultivator, you do have to get permission from your community in order to put in one of those facilities. If you're a caregiver, and Sam can correct me if I'm wrong on this, you can open a facility in your community, not necessarily a storefront, but a regular medical marijuana grow. Currently, the way it works is that, you know, if you have a caregiver license, you know, you can, you know, grow up to, you know, 30 plants essentially for 5 cards, or, you know, 36 plants for 6 cards. That's including yourself if you're, you know, have a medical marijuana card, or grow 500 square feet of canopy space. And what the current law requires is that these people retail essentially 25% of their product, and then wholesale, you know, the other 75% of their product. I'll tell you, when the caregiver storefront started to pop up all over the place and towns weren't really regulating it, I was concerned, you know, in my community, as I saw some of these caregiver storefronts pop up, and I'm like, I don't know that that's the way the whole caregiver, you know, model is supposed to work. And we've since dealt with that in previous laws. I think in retrospect, and when I look at this, you know, I'm getting fewer phone calls from my constituents now because we have caregiver storefronts instead. So, you know, I may have like a medical marijuana, you know, grower that's cultivating, you know, and having to sell 25% of their product, but that was occurring in some neighborhoods. So, you know, I would get calls from constituents basically saying, hey, I've got this line of cars in my neighborhood, you know, all, you know, purchasing, you know, medical marijuana at somebody's, you know, particular house, which was, you know, causing definitely some issues and concerns within neighborhoods and in my community. The way I feel now is that, you know, now that we have sort of these caregiver storefronts, people are going there to purchase, you know, marijuana and, you know, commercial zones and in retail, you know, settings instead of neighborhoods. So I'm all for, you know, letting growers be growers and letting retailers be retailers. So 100% wholesale model, you know, makes sense to me. I think that, you know, we want people to do what's best, and we don't want them to struggle, you know, in their businesses, because I think that when people struggle in their businesses, you know, there's, you know, irreparable, you know, harms that can happen, like, you know, people potentially you know, selling again, maybe in the black market, or, you know, the possibility that, you know, somebody goes out of business, loses their shirt, their house, you know, their ability to feed themselves and everything, because they can't make that, you know, forced business model work. So I'm all for 100% retail. Thanks.
Thanks. I can say I have a lot of concerns with 100% retail. I think it's something I could eventually support, but I don't consider it a caregiver at that point because you're not treating patients. And it really should be, it may create some
Sorry,
conflicts.
wholesale. I said I meant wholesale, not retail. But
Gotcha. Right. I do think it changes fundamentally the definition of a caregiver, and I'd rather see a more comprehensive change to the statute to work that in. Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank you, Representative Corey, for going through that. I remain confused, however. I'm not sure who to ask, but I think the question brought up was whether this interferes with municipalities opting in. And I was looking and don't see anyone from MMA in the room, but I wonder if something Sam could address or
Yeah,
someone
I think,
else.
Sam, you sent us an email at some point with some clarifying? I don't know if you have that handy or.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
At the time.
That specific question was about whether manufacturing facility municipal approval. I think my understanding is that caregivers aren't currently subject to municipal approval. I think that the difference, I don't know that this is really, the proposal in this bill is really changing anything about like what a caregiver could produce. It's just, I think maybe the question people are, it seems to me the question people are struggling with is about whether or not they still think of that person as a caregiver if they're doing complete wholesale. So I guess that's the long answer, and the short answer is they would not need municipal approval if they went full wholesale as proposed by this bill.
Thanks,
And
Sam.
a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Back to Sam, this was the item you said would require some change around dispensary caregiver. Are we talking about that at this point?
All I was pointing out for that was that the summary of the bill included that it would allow these transfers between caregivers and also dispensaries, and that the language in the bill just left out the dispensary section. Okay. Yeah, so if the committee wants to move forward, I would just suggest that be added in. Otherwise, it's not doing what it says it does.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Director Gunderson, if you're there, can you weigh in from the department's perspective on the 100% wholesale?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have similar concerns that you have, Senator Lucchini, about it fundamentally changing the program and what the caregiver model is. Having said that, if it was done correctly, we could find ourselves in a spot where we would support 100% wholesale, whether that means coming out with cultivation licenses, retail licenses, manufacturing licenses. But yeah, it fundamentally changes the caregiver model and the definition of what a caregiver is. And when this was brought up in front of the HHS committee, that was also elevated, and that's why they still maintain that 25% direct to patients, what the original caregiver model was intended for. So this is something where, at least from the department's perspective, we could get behind as long as it's done correctly with all of the considerations that are brought up from everybody on the committee, for sure.
Thanks. And I guess from your perspective, I mean, would you, if we were to carry this over, and I don't know how the committee's going to fall out on the vote, but I mean, my preference would be to carry it over with the directive that you work with stakeholders to try to hash out a lot of these details, because a lot of these provisions actually kind of conflict with the rule as well. So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, we would be happy to. Like I said, I can see 100% wholesale as long as it's done the right way. We can start to clean up the medical statute and remove some of the conflicts in there. But absolutely would be happy to do that and work with the bill sponsor and the individuals he's been working with.
Okay. Thanks. And I mean, just from my perspective, again, I do think there's some provisions in here that we can move on soon, but I think it may be potentially a different vehicle that we could possibly do that, but just some thoughts. Any Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions. One for Director Gunderson. Can you just go through again where we are now? We're at 75% now, and this would make it 100%.
Correct. So all of the product that they grow and manufacture, 75% of it is able to go into basically the stream of commerce, wholesale, and then 25% of that is supposed to be direct to patient care.
And what would need to change is not simply a definition, but sort of a definition of these different categories of caregiver, cultivator.
Yeah, correct. It would have to do with, I mean, if we're looking to create a cultivating license, that obviously is a significant change to the program and what that looks like. If you go to 100% wholesale, kind of reimagining what that caregiver model or the definition of caregiver is. It's certainly, again, this is a provision that we could get behind, but it certainly makes a larger impact on the underlying statute and program itself that it would take some time and consideration. But again, I'm happy to work with Representative Kluker on what that would look like.
Thank you. My other question, Mr. Chair, was, and I can't do it because I'm talking too much, but do we want to table while we take up the other bills and then come back to this one? Because some of the elements might be addressed elsewhere. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, I'm up for anything. I think there's actually some pretty good potential for working this stuff out. I just don't think we're there yet, which is why I'm kind of in the carryover camp. We just have so many structural reforms hitting at the exact same time that a rule is being dropped, and it does just cause some issues. But yeah, however the committee feels. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted your input, Director Gunderson. We've heard from Sam, we've heard from others. I just want confirmation from your perspective that as it states right now, medical growers do not require local zoning approval in order to grow. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, correct. So caregivers do not require local authorization for their authorized activity under the statute for cultivating, manufacturing, and sales, except for the instance where they have the brick and mortar caregiver storefront. That does carry the local authorization requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to sort of clarify this as well, that, you know, if we were to make this change, it's not like any of these caregivers could actually grow more marijuana, right? They would still be restricted to 500 square feet or 36 plants, correct? Whether we're 50% or 100% wholesale or 75% wholesale, they would still be producing the same amount of marijuana, correct?
Is that for me or anyone?
For the director.
Okay.
Director.
Yeah, no, that's my understanding of the way that it's written. It would still be the 30 plants or 500 square foot.
I have another question. I'm just curious. Would this in some ways streamline inspections in a lot of ways? Like if you were going into an inspection where you knew somebody was 100% wholesale, you know, you're really kind of only looking at cultivating habits, where if you're going into a caregiver storefront, right, you're probably only looking at, you know, the product labeling and, you know, that they're, you know, keeping up with the sales, you know, piece of it. And then if you're going into a person that both wholesales and caregives, that's probably more of an administrative nightmare for you, right?
I don't know. I don't think I would say it would streamline our inspection. I mean, you're certainly looking for different things, but I wouldn't say that it would streamline it. You're still going into a caregiver growing operation. We go through our typical inspections. And as far as trying to ensure compliance with the 75-25, that's something that I believe our compliance team would just check books and records to make sure that they're in compliance with that requirement. But again, if you remember Deputy Director Malik's testimony, the books and records thing is one of the items in our inspections that has a lower compliance rate that we kind of educate and work with them to make sure that they're where they need to be next time we see them.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sam, yep.
I just wanted to point one more, or remind the committee of one more thing that was in my bill analysis before you move on to vote or decide whatever you want to do with this bill, which is that section 13. This is the part of the bill that creates a fee structure for for a cultivator based on plant canopy. That change was already made in by this committee in LD 881, and I believe that the fee structure is and the language is identical. So it would probably be a good idea to remove that portion from this bill if you move forward with it, just so you don't end up with a double.
Yeah, that's
double section.
That's right. I think Representative Corey flagged that in an earlier bill, and yeah.
I would strike it from my amendment.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on the bill?
I would support the tabling motion as suggested by Representative McCrate. If she wanted, if she was still interested, I would support that. So I would do a motion to table.
Yeah, but sorry, Representative, it's got to be a freestanding motion. So Representative Supika, if you wanted to make a motion. Yeah, sure.
Motion to table.
Okay, motion to table by Representative Supika. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative McCrate. Okay. Motion to table takes precedence. So Karen, if you're there, if we can proceed to a roll call vote. The motion before us is to table.
LD 939, correct?
Yep, sorry, LD 939, yep.
Senator Lucchini?
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Hickman? Senator Hickman, absent. Senator Farren?
Yes.
Senator Farren, yes. Representative Chiazzo?
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCrate?
Yes.
Representative McCrate, yes. Representative Tuttle?
Arbitrator's decision.
Yes.
And we could
Representative
be
Tuttle,
forced to
yes.
take drastic
Representative Riley?
Yes.
There you are. Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika?
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood?
Yes.
Representative Wood, yes. Representative Kinney? Representative Kinney, absent. Representative Harrington? Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey?
Yes.
Representative Corey, yes. Representative Dalla?
Yes.
Representative Dalla, yes. 10 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 3 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Karen. So that bill will be tabled for now, and we could potentially take it up later today if we want. So next on the list, why don't we move to LD 1242? And I know we've, Sam, you did kind of a joint analysis on both of these. So 1242 and 13, I think 19, just, but if you can give us a quick reminder on 1242.
Okay, great. Yeah, let me pull it up. And this one, oh, just a second. All right. So yeah, as you mentioned, I did a joint analysis on these two bills because they both pertain to similar issues. What 1242 does, just as a reminder for the committee, is does quite a few things, but the first is that it changes the designation of rules governing medical use of marijuana from routine technical to major substantive. It provides that the department's current rules governing medical use that were last amended on February 1st, 2018, remain the current rules, and that before adopting or amending the rules governing the medical use of marijuana, the department must establish a process to include caregivers, registered caregivers, and patients and physicians, and certified nurse practitioners with significant knowledge and experience certifying patients under the laws governing the medical use of marijuana in the development of the new rules, and must consult with caregivers, registered caregivers, patients, physicians, and certified nurse practitioners. It requires the department to develop a process to retain any consultant hired to advise on rule changes related to the laws, and report back to this committee. Report back to the Health and Human Services Committee on the development of that process no later than September 1st, 2021. It eliminates the requirement that a registered caregiver, a registered dispensary, a testing facility, or a manufacturing facility complete an annual audit conducted by a third party of their business transactions. And that's the provision that was just discussed in LD 939, the third party audit requirement. And it eliminates the requirement that the department develop and implement a statewide electronic portal through which registered caregivers, registered dispensaries, and marijuana testing facilities and manufacturing facilities may submit records to the department, and that's metric, as I understand it.
Great. Great. Thanks, Sam. And I guess I can kick it off. Kind of as I mentioned last time, I think if we were to retroactively turn a rule into major substantive, it really just delays everything for a year. Essentially, we'd be in the exact same position next year. We would just have a bill with a resolve. So I think we have an opportunity to try to make changes to the rule now in the same exact manner we would if it were a major substantive rule, which is essentially through a resolve, or not a resolve. I guess if we make statutory change of bill and then directives to change the rule. So I've put together just like a bullet point amendment, which, do you have that available, Sam? And just for consideration from the committee and people to see, because I think the reality is if this bill or the other bill weren't to pass or were to fail for any reason, like didn't get enough votes or vetoed, then the rule in full would be implemented. And I think everybody has a lot of concerns about that. So this, I just put together a few bullet point things of ways that I think we can change the rule based on reading through all of the testimony and meeting with people from throughout the industry. So I tried to keep it as simple as I could, but thank you, Sam. I can go through it if it works for people. So basically removing that, the first, I guess, category would be statutory changes, because I think some of this we need to do through statute. Removing that independent third-party audit, which I think that's in this bill, that's in 939. I think a lot of people have issues with that. Frankly, the department could go through right now and ask people for their audits. And then if they didn't have it, I think it's problematic for the industry. So removing that requirement now, I think would be helpful, and it's both in statute and rule. Adding the single card language provided by OMP, that was also overlapped with 939, I think, except for they gave language that they felt would work better. And then the third one was allowing caregivers to sell plants to patients directly. That was something, when I had met with Dawson early on, that was something that he wanted. And then in terms of the rules, I basically just looked through the rules and at the things that would cost people the most money from hearing from people. So basically removing video surveillance requirements for home-based caregivers, that's through all the 11 sections of the rules. Removing the security system requirements for home-based caregivers, that's like the 24-hour, 24/7, keeping it for 30 days, removing all of that stuff. Number 3 is removing all the lighting requirements. As we heard from people, that's expensive to run wire and cable, and it's kind of useless if you don't have cameras anyway. So point 4 is more broadly removing the video and security requirements for a caregiver dwelling unit, so your home. So the home-based caregivers obviously don't have retail stores, but if somebody was doing stuff from home, this wouldn't require any video or security requirements at their house itself. The car alarm requirements, I heard from several people they thought was unnecessary. Point 6 would be remove references to law enforcement throughout the rule. That's something that I've heard a lot from people, as well as from Mr. Malik, who's running the compliance firm, that now that they're up and running with enough people, it's more of a compliance issue now than it is a law enforcement function. And if they need to call in law enforcement for something illegal, there's still all of those abilities. 7 would direct the department to create exemptions for small caregivers from the track and trace system. So this would create a way that OMP would carve out the smallest people, so we don't hurt the small people with the costs of, the $40 a month and 50 cents or whatever it is per tag. Number 8 is creating a more flexible plan for metric if it goes offline or the registrant loses internet. I think just giving more flexibility to people if they aren't able to report as fast without penalty. We don't want to see anybody get penalized for stuff like this. And then 9 was splitting up the rules. It was in one of the documents we received between marijuana tinctures and marijuana drinks, which both are currently kind of falling under the marijuana products provision. And so clarifying that was something the industry asked for in one of the bigger documents, which I think that document's a good basis for, again, working between stakeholders kind of over the summer and trying to hash out details. But I think to make any big comprehensive change, we really have to involve everybody in the discussion. So that's my thoughts on a quick amendment of how we can change the rules and potentially do it now rather than rolling the dice on the bill as written, which I think will face some resistance and may not pass. And then the end result will be full implementation of the rule. So that's it. I guess you can take it down if you want, Sam. But that was just some thoughts. I don't know if anybody has any reactions or open to any of that rather than changing to major substantive. It's something that we could potentially do. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the exemption of track and trace? Would that be for any small size caregiver, or is that, what about the wholesale requirements that we're talking about now, the 75% that they can transfer? How would that impact wholesale transfers?
Well, as written, it would just direct, obviously we'd have to fine tune the language, but it would direct OMP to create a carve out for small caregivers. So that's something that they would have to work on. I assume that if somebody is going to sell 100% wholesale, that the department would want them in the track and trace system because they really aren't doing any caregiving function of, treating patients or whatever. It's more just selling into the system. So, but we don't specifically write rules, so it's more just directing them to change. It's a thought. Sam, sorry.
Oh, I was looking at that and I'm not 100% sure, but just kind of to put it on the committee's radar, that may be something that it will be necessary to give the department authority to create the carve out for in statute.
Okay.
Just because as I understand track and trace, it applies to everybody. So I don't know that the department can create an exemption without also having the statutory authority to do so.
That's a good catch. Thank you, Sam. Representative Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to figure out how you would differentiate the size of a caregiver. Sort of everybody that holds a caregiver license, is limited to 500 square feet or 30 and 36 plants. Of course you can, go and visit, a grow where, somebody and then their spouse, may both, hold caregiver, cards and be cultivating, 1,000 square feet or, 60, or 72 plants, if that's how the math works out. But I'm not even sure how we would differentiate between the size of caregivers within current law unless, we were to somehow set that up as, how much income people claim from having done a certain business enterprise. In terms of sort of like caregiver function, I think that we've got three different markets. We've got an adult and recreational use, market. We do have a medical market that's split up essentially in two different ways. We have dispensaries, which, have very, different rules with, how much they can cultivate and sell and everything. And then we have a caregiver market, but I still think that everybody within that caregiver market is technically, a caregiver because they're providing, access to medicine for patients. So, I mean, I tend to think that, like I was talking about on the previous bill, some people might be, challenged to be vertically integrated, meaning that, they're cultivating, they're processing, they're labeling, they're selling directly, to patients in a retail manner. But I still think that, a strict cultivator is, technically providing, marijuana to, the patient market. In terms of, these caregiver, storefronts, I think in some ways, these people may be, carrying, more product that any one caregiver can grow themselves. So they're actually giving their patients a greater variety of medicine. And, maybe their consulting with patients might be a little bit better than the person that's trying to do it all. I know that's a little discussion on that last bill, but I still have a hard time, at least in my head, differentiating what a caregiver actually is between whether they're cultivating or directly selling. I feel like they're all part of a network or a system that's providing, patient access to medicine. Thanks.
And Director Gunderson, are you available? See, I think he's in here. So Director, so if under the home-based caregiver definition, that's a caregiver without a retail store, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And obviously this is a significant change from your original rule. Have you had any thoughts of ways you can carve out? I know we received from one of the groups some attempt at trying to classify people by size with caregiver, and I think it's as a potential option. But I mean, do you think we can work through a way, if we were to give you a directive, to find ways that we can get the smallest people, who really just have limited patience, a way to save them money that would have cost on this stuff?
I will say that directive does give me a little bit of pause trying to create carve-outs and exceptions to inventory tracking within the program, which I think is imperative for the integrity of the program and to protect public health and community safety. Having said that, if it's the directive of this committee, we can certainly work towards that. We did make an attempt to find some type of carve-out in the first iteration of the rules. I would certainly agree with what you said earlier. Anybody that's engaging in wholesaling should absolutely be on the inventory tracking system. But I certainly, or I should say the office, if we got that directive, would certainly make a good faith effort in talking with industry and caregivers and trying to figure out what an appropriate business model would be, with the intentions of still capturing the majority of cannabis as it moves through the system, but carving out the smallest of operators for sure.
Okay. Thanks. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, from a philosophical perspective, I can agree with a lot of the expansion and a lot of the broadening of the medical marijuana industry. But my challenge is that in community, that's great as long as the communities can opt into some form of control of that. My concern, as I expressed in the last bill, is that, and I think Representative Corey even alluded to that, right now they're exempt from local control. And if they do happen to combine, if it's a husband and wife or family members in the same room or same location, could they have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 square foot grows sectioned off by individuals, but now the town has no ability to say you can do that, but you can have to do that in certain areas, or they have no control over that. So I think in my thing, I can agree to a lot of these changes and a lot of these expansions. If the last option or the last control is at the local level, that allows towns to say either, yes, we approve of that in these locations, and we approve of that wherever they want. But I don't want to have I don't want the towns not to have the ability to control that in the end. So that's my big hang up. And I know some of these rules, exempting wholesale, or having 100% wholesale. I'm okay with that as long as it doesn't create a loophole that allows anybody to decide to become a grower, and we have potentially hundreds of different plots all over town that are growing because they can, because they're able to, not because they're doing it in a neighborhood or another area. So I'm for exploring these changes. I think it's a good approach for this bill. I think we probably want to sit and let it stew a little bit more and let it percolate a little bit more. So I don't think I'm necessarily ready to vote on it, but I'd like to have some time to digest it a little bit more as well.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think obviously where I just pushed it out there, I think giving people some time to look at it, react, and we can hear from industry as well to see if they think that that's something that can get it at least moving now forward, rather than just wait a year. Representative McCray.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A question for Director Gunderson. Could you just talk me through the municipal control piece? I have different ideas about how much control municipalities have or don't have. And if you could clarify, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the registration types within the medical program that require a local authorization, essentially for them to engage in those activities in the host community, are a caregiver brick and mortar retail store, a dispensary. Those are both locations, both their store and their grow, and standalone manufacturing facilities, which we actually don't have any of. That's what requires the local authorization in order to conduct business. However, there is language in there that says towns can regulate caregivers, but they can't limit the number, and they can't really limit those authorized activities. So it's, yeah, the local control, what Representative Chiazzo is talking about, is essentially a town giving their blessing for those authorized activities. Again, it's dispensaries, caregiver storefronts, standalone manufacturing facilities, and also testing.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Sorry, just muted myself. Director Gunderson, just on that last point, towns can regulate, but they can't limit or determine what the activities are. So what would the regulation look like?
That would be a great question for towns. It really varies on what they do and to what extent. But yeah, the statutory language is they may regulate, but they cannot prohibit or limit the number of caregivers that operate within their borders. Yeah.
And specific to caregivers, that was what that's about.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to table.
Second.
A motion tabled by Senator Farren, second by Representative Corey. Karen, if you're ready, we can proceed to a roll call on the tabling motion.
Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Hickman. Senator Hickman, absent. Senator Farren.
Yes.
Senator Farren, yes. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCray.
Yes.
Representative McCray, yes. Representative Tuttle.
Yes.
Representative Tuttle, yes. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wood, yes. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey.
Yes.
Representative Corey, yes. Representative Dolph.
Yes.
Representative Dolph, yes. 11 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 2 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. So that'll be tabled and we can take that up at a later point, but just want to give people a chance to read through and see that. I'm thinking that's perhaps the way we may go with a lot of bills today, as we're just continuing to work through a lot of these issues, and there is just a significant amount of overlap between them all. But Sam, can you quickly, I guess, go over 1319, some of the highlights on that one? Is it 1319? Yeah.
Sure.
And then we can discuss, between the moratorium and major substantive, they kind of have a similar impact on the rule. So
yes, they certainly have some kind of overlapping provisions. So LD 1319, it has a few different elements. First, it provides that the department may not issue more than 14 marijuana dispensary registration certificates. It also provides that the department may not adopt rules governing the medical use of marijuana until December 1st, 2023. And that beginning December 31st, I think I said December 1st the first time. And then beginning December 31st, 2023, OMP may adopt rules governing the medical use of marijuana only if the office beforehand using existing resources and before the adoption of those rules conducts studies on the economic impact of the rules and how the rules would affect the access of patients to marijuana for medical use. And then the bill also extends the repeal date for a portion of the definition of resident in the Marijuana Legalization Act from June 1st, 2021 to June 1st, 2025. And I believe, as I mentioned before, that provision of the definition has to do with having a certain number of previous income tax years in the state. And then one thing that I had pointed out in the initial work session for this bill was that while it provides a moratorium on the adoption of rules, it's not clear, I think, from the language what would happen to the current rules. So I think it could be read if you say that the department may not adopt rules governing the medical marijuana program until December 31st, 2023. That may actually, I think it could be read to void the rules that are currently in place. And one thing that 1242 did that 1319 doesn't is it made clear that the current rules would stay in place until then. So that might be something the committee wants to consider doing here if you were to move forward with this bill.
great, thank you, Sam, for that. I guess Director Gunderson, if you're available, I know that there's been that you're interested in allowing for more people to have dispensary licenses available. Is this something that, I guess, have you heard a lot from the industry from people who want to become dispensaries?
We have over the years that people are looking for those applications to be made available. A lot of caregivers within our program are interested in growing their business and moving to the dispensary model. So I think certainly more than 14. And I believe this was part of the compromise in LD 1539. In order for the caregivers to expand their businesses, those that wish to choose to go that route would be available to do that with the cap being removed from the dispensaries.
Right, and so the cap was removed at the start of this year, right?
Correct.
And essentially the rule, basically you just need to write an application, get that ready to go, and then people will be able to start applying and get it.
Right, the criteria and the application process is laid out in the proposed rules of how individuals can go through the application process, and we have shared expectations of what that looks like in order to become a dispensary. And why that's important too is because the older rules, the 18 rules, still are written in a way that have that competitive bid process from the origination of the program.
Right. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question. Basically, we're still operating under the February or whatever 2018 rules we've had a major change in the program ever since. So
right.
Any dispensary would kind of be under a different set of rules, and basically you could do whatever you want. It seems like, I don't know.
Right. I mean, would obviously want to talk to the Office of the Attorney General, but I'm almost certain that we could start rolling out the dispensary applications tomorrow if we wanted to, but we felt it was important to have the clarity in the rule so there's a shared understanding of all the information that's being exchanged and what the process looks like before making them public.
Right. Yeah, because it seems like you potentially could, as you said, just start doing it now, but having a little more guidelines may be better. I'm sure the industry would probably prefer that. Any questions, other questions on this while we're working through it? So I guess it's obviously, Director, your department opposes the cap and the moratorium. I think you've submitted testimony to that effect, of course. Can you speak to the resident piece? This extending the repeal date of the definition of resident?
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Senator, but I believe the language is it's pertaining to the residency requirement in the other program, our state's adult use program, where there is that residency requirement. But if people remember, I believe it was a year and a half ago now, where the lawsuit was filed, and we took the counsel of the Office of the Attorney General in not enforcing the residency requirement because the counsel that we got was that it was unlikely to be sustained in court. That would fly in the face of the oh my God, it's eluding basically the Constitution, the Commerce Clause. There
Commerce
we go.
Clause, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we haven't actually been enforcing it.
Right. Okay. That one does. Yeah, the Marijuana Legalization Act. So, other questions on this one, or clear? People need clarity on what this one is attempting to do. Okay. Representative Chiazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a real hard time about suspending all the rules, which I think, if I understand, this is what 1319 is asking for. I could work with 1242 at a minimum. I want the current rules to be in place and not have no rules in place. So I'm going to move ought not to pass on 1319.
Second.
Okay, a motion of ought not to pass by Representative Chiazzo and seconded by Representative Tuttle. Further discussion. Representative Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to be supporting the pending motion. I'd like to see this possibly be used as a vehicle, maybe with some amendments to suspend rulemaking in the event that we can't get the major substantive going. And maybe instead of it being that where it's a moratorium on all the rules, if we're looking at this as something that would actually suspend the 2018 rules as well, but I agree we should not be doing that. We need to have some rules in place, and a lot of work was done by the legislature back at that time. So I'd like to see something maybe more, maybe we need to hold on to this for a little bit longer, or and then possibly do something more with putting in specific dates to try to get to where we want to get to with possibly with 1270, 1242. Got too many bills. I can't
I
remember
can't
all the
keep track
numbers.
anymore. I have lost all.
Yeah, I'm not I won't be supporting the pending motion at this time. Thanks.
Sure, and yeah, I mean, given some of that discussion, I think if we wanted to table, that's something we could certainly do, and we can come back to it. Just for everybody's kind of info, just for now, we're only approved to go to the end of this week. We may request additional time, but just so people can plan for voting purposes, that we'll want to do it by the end of the week. Because if we don't have permission and it's sitting in committee, then the bills could just die in committee, which adds another layer of something to think about before we, if we don't want to vote. So, I mean, I'd be fine with that. I think we had talked about that a bit too. So I guess any other discussion?
I would motion to table. I'm motioning to table.
Yep, gotcha. Yeah.
Second.
That was Representative Supika. Okay, motion to table.
Second.
Okay, yep, thank you. By Representative Supika and seconded by Representative Kinney.
You guys are starting to sound like each other.
If the box doesn't go around the person, it's hard to find who it was, the yellow box. Okay, so that's a tabling motion. Karen, if you're ready, if you'd call the roll, please, that'd be great.
Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Hickman. Senator Hickman, absent. Senator Farren.
Yes.
Senator Farren, yes. Representative Chiazza.
Yes.
Representative Chiazza, yes. Representative McCray.
Yes.
Representative McCray, yes. Representative Tuttle.
Yes.
Representative Tuttle, yes. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wood, yes. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey. Representative Corey, absent. Representative Dolph.
Yes.
Representative Dolph, yes. 10 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 3 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Karen. So that'll be tabled. And again, just so all the committee members know, we'll be just to be on watch for basically any day this week, depending on where we have to pick it up. And with session Wednesday, it may mean we have to pick up another off day or typical day that we don't technically meet. So we have that permission. And we may see if we can meet next week as well. So I think the last bill on our agenda is LD, is it 882?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, can you do a quick overview again of that one, just to remind us? Thanks.
Yeah, and this one, I think it was 2 weeks ago that we first had a work session. So this bill authorizes the Department of Administrative and Financial Services to place an administrative hold on marijuana plants and harvested marijuana, or impose an administrative hold on certain registry identification card holders and registration certificate holders. It allows them to permanently revoke registry identification cards and certificates issued by the department, and allows them to assess fines for misconduct by a registered caregiver, retail store, dispensary, manufacturing facility, or person authorized to engage in marijuana extraction using inherently hazardous substances up to $10,000. And it authorizes the department to assess fines for misconduct by caregivers, assistants, or other authorized agents of a caregiver, caregiver retail store, dispensary, manufacturing facility, or person authorized to engage in marijuana extraction using inherently hazardous substances up to $2,000. So just if and to maybe make the pieces of this bill a little less abstract, this is the bill that was essentially giving the department more enforcement tools rather than just revoking the registrations.
Thanks, Sam. I know we had talked in a couple other bills about fines and penalties too. Where do those correlate, or where they interact with this bill? How do they relate with this bill? Are those completely separate standalone, or is it something that is going to impact 882?
I think this bill stands on its own among the other ones we've been working on. Although I can double check.
Representative Pika, did you have a question for Sam while he's looking up, or was it something separate? Okay, yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead.
I can go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
So in regards to this bill and also the other bills too, but I know that we're only focused on this one. We all received a document of kind of like consensus from a lot of the different growers and people in the medical marijuana community. I don't want to say factions, but I'm just going to say factions. And of course, in the end of it, they have sort of an analysis, or not a position on the bills. But one of the areas, and kind of going through the document, and I apologize, I'm not terribly familiar with it, but I would like to see if we could call in Miss Meehan to kind of speak to maybe. In the document we received, it says there's consensus around the need for a more nuanced set of enforcement tools. So it seems like both OMP, like there was an agreement that we need, a new one. Like I was wondering if we could call her in to kind of speak to what they were thinking and see if we can actually find consensus there. And also kind of to talk to the document that they sent us and what their intent was with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any consensus yet. I don't believe there's been any active negotiation. I think at this point we're kind of still getting input from both sides. But I hear what you're saying. We'll bring Ms. Meehan in if she wants to address the content of that document they sent us. And Sam, I don't know if did you want to see that up on the screen, Laura, and walk through it, or did you just want to ask Ms. Meehan a specific question?
I don't know. We can walk through it. Or we can, because it delves into a lot of different bills, and kind of just going back to what you just said though, real quick, is I just want to make sure that as we continue this conversation that we are making space for the stakeholders to come in and kind of speak to what's been proposed, but also to speak to this document that they put together. So it doesn't go like unrecognized and not talked about by us.
Yeah, sure. So did you have a specific question around 882 that you wanted to ask, or?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, good morning. Good afternoon, actually.
Good morning.
Ms. Meehan. So I've received the document. I haven't had a chance to really go over it a whole bunch, but I did look into it where, let's see, it was talked about violations and enforcement of program rules on a stepped scale encompassing the following, and kind of speaking to what the different stakeholders were considered as like a consensus for, like on your side, as far as what enforcement you guys would propose and would like to see. I don't know.
Okay.
I apologize.
The enforcement.
It's clear right now.
I don't want to. I don't want to interrupt, but Ms. Meehan, could you please, just for the record, state who you are and who you're representing and where you're from, please, so that we can start with that.
Yes,
Thanks.
my name is Susan Meehan. I'm the chairperson for the Marijuana Cannabis Maine Cannabis Coalition, and I work together with the 5 organizations at the top of the letterhead on this document that you're referring to over the course of the last week at the direction of Senator Hickman and the committee, who said we had about 10 days to come together with a proposal. I think specifically you're asking about the correction and enforcement section right now in regard to 882. Am I correct? Or would you like me to go through the whole document? On page 13, enforcement of program rules will be on a step scale, and it talks about like warnings, second warnings, fines, fine ranges. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So we worked very hard on this and making a fair system that was based on correction and education, facilitating businesses to stay in business rather than finding them out of business. We believe that after issuing a warning and a plan of correction, that a second warning was also indicated on our list upon if the plan of correction wasn't followed within the stated time frame and the issue is repeated. And we even went to the point of giving a third strike, basically. And at that point, at the third strike, you would experience a fine if you still failed to correct the issue that you are cited for. And then a fine would be doubled. And a fourth offense, we would give a suspension instead of a only a revocation, which OMP has stated that they feel they need something in between fine and revocation of a license. So suspension would be the next step, and then revocation. Fines would range from $100 to $2,000, and a maximum fine on utilizing inherently hazardous substances would be significantly more, using those substances without the proper licensing and the proper safety procedures. That would that's an exception and goes up to 10,000 because it not only impacts the caregiver, patients, etc., but that could very well impact the community using a substance that you're not properly trained in and properly licensed in and have the proper safety features could significantly impact public safety. We gave categories and lists, categories ranging from record keeping to improper labeling, diversion of product into the black market, and again, public health and safety violations. And I believe you have the document in front of you with all the details in those blanks, but I'm absolutely happy to answer more questions or go further. Follow up, if I may.
Go ahead, Representative Supika.
Thank you. So I'm not able to right now sit here and tell anybody what the exact differences are between what's being proposed, because my brain's a little bit saturated right now. But what I am seeing before me is that there are fines, and that there's no nobody's coming, like, I'm not seeing in this document where it's saying there's no fines and that there's no revocation, like, at all, but that it's stepped up. And so I want to know is, like, do we have room to work in this, like, to kind of like find a compromise between what's being proposed so that we can at least come up with something for people to know and have like a transparent, have it on paper and have it be transparent for people, because I think that that's something that I've also heard in the past, is that we're not opposed to fines, but we just want transparency when it comes to it. Like, is there room for compromise in this document with what's being proposed as far as fines and everything? Absolutely. I think the biggest difference is that we would like to see focus on a plan of correction and giving a business the capacity and the ability to come into compliance and keep their business operating rather than find them out of business as a first step. So it would be a stepped process focusing on education and helping a business come into compliance first before resorting to fines. Okay. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair, for me for now.
Thank you, Representative Supika. I think so. I believe everybody in the committee received this document in their inbox, but Sam, I don't know, did you receive it as well? So we may want to just post that up to the testimony page as well to let others in the interested parties take a look at it, just for the sake of transparency. And we can always put, if you wanted to share it up now and while we talk about it. I don't know if we really want to necessarily spend the time going through it all right now, but you know, I think maybe it's probably better for have us just kind of digest it as individuals, and then we can bring it up at the next meeting, if depending on if this bill goes as the other ones have today. So Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question. I see it in the analysis, and I also see it in the document from you, Ms. Meehan. I just don't know what is an inherently hazardous substance, where the fine is still, you're still okay with the fine being $10,000, but I don't know what that is.
Inherently hazardous substances are defined in the OMP proposed rule, and I believe it's also in the 2018 rules. Ethanol is one that is exempted from that definition, and I believe this is actually at statute level. And inherently hazardous substances has a flash point of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or less. So it makes it a very volatile substance. An example is butane, for example. It's used in many of our extraction processes, and it requires quite the facility to do it safely. A simple spark could set things off, and those plans are already in place. So this fine would be for someone who doesn't have the proper licensed facility using those inherently hazardous substances that are defined by statute at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Sam, did you want to follow up with that?
All I was going to do was provide the statutory definition, but I think that description was pretty comprehensive, and it's more or less things that can blow up.
Great. All right, thanks, Sam. Chairman Lucchini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Susan, for sending us all that information. I think that's really helpful for us. And you know, as we move forward through the week, if you have thoughts on the rules or the amendment that I put forward previously, or you know, any way we can, any suggestions on any of that, we like to hear from everybody's groups as well as this topic. So that document was helpful, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. We worked very hard to build consensus among a very large group of representatives and the stakeholders of this community.
Speaking from experience, we know that's not easy to do, for sure. Any other questions from the committee? Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, it sounds like both the stakeholder group and this bill are attempting to find levels. And my question is how, the same as Representative Supika, are we close? How far apart are we? Because the intent sounds very similar. And I don't know if that's a question for now or for later, or if it's a question for the sponsor. I think it's a question for the sponsor.
Thank you.
Chairman Lucchini. You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I'm not used to being on mute. Yeah, I am the sponsor technically, aren't I? It's a department bill, so yeah, I think we just need some time to look through where we just received this stuff last night, and to work through some of the issues. I think the issue of administrative holds is a good option, so that OMP doesn't have to come down and go hard on people with 1-year suspensions or revocation of license. I think giving some flexibility, whether it is through a fine structure or a hold, that way you don't just have to jump to a really hard line penalty. I think it's good for people, because losing your license for a year is obviously very serious and it could shut you down. So, but I think it's probably something we need to take some time and look through and see where obviously the intersection is between the industry as well as the regulator. So
Yeah, and I think from what I heard from Mr. Malik or Deputy Director Malik was that, you know, they oftentimes they're trying to help and assist with corrective measures, and they want to really work with the providers to make sure that, you know, the rules are understood and the compliance is the ability to comply is there, and before really, you know, jumping on people and just coming out and issuing fines out of the gate. But it always helps to kind of structure that tiered a little bit, so that discretion is maybe a little bit more codified, for lack of a better word. So, any other questions, comments from the committee? Senator Hickman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can visit for just a few minutes here. I wanted to thank Susan Meehan and the others who worked tirelessly this week to bring something to the committee to digest. It's important that all voices are heard, and knowing that there were a lot of folks in opposition to the rules as written who came together to provide a way forward, I believe is in good faith. I have briefed the document. I did not participate in its formation, as full transparency, and I'm actually rather surprised that the community is willing to still be regulated in a way that I didn't expect. So that just goes to show that this is an industry that is interested in being regulated. We will discuss obviously more of this next week. I am totally opposed to administrative holds. I don't think they make any sense in regulatory apparatus. And so I just want to put that in the record today. And with that, I will give over my remaining time to someone else who's had to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. Senator Farren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to kind of tag along with what Senator Hickman was saying as far as how the community has come together. I also want to recognize our chair, Senator Lucchini, for bringing forward, trying to push us all towards that compromise piece that everyone, you know, has to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. I know, you know, the department was moving forward with these rules, and the community was very concerned about where that was headed. And, you know, the art of compromise is not everyone's going to be 100% happy with what they have. I think our chair is doing a great job of leading us down that discussion path. So I'm optimistic that we'll get there. I just think everybody's going to work together and realize that no one's going to be 100% happy when it's all done. I'd say we've done our job if that's the way that it turns out.
Thank you, Senator Farren.
Yeah, thanks, Senator. We'll see how it goes.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Chairman Lucchini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think given that, I'll move to table.
Second.
Okay, motion to table is non-debatable. Motion by Senator Lucchini, seconded by Senator Farren. Karen, when you are ready, please call the roll. And this is to table LD 882.
Senator Lucchini.
Yes.
Senator Lucchini, yes. Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Farren.
Yes.
Senator Farren, yes. Representative Chiazzo.
Yes.
Representative Chiazzo, yes. Representative McCray.
Yes.
Representative McCray, yes. Representative Tuttle.
Yes.
Representative Tuttle, yes. Representative Riley.
Yes.
Representative Riley, yes. Representative Supika.
Yes.
Representative Supika, yes. Representative Wood.
Yes.
Representative Wood, yes. Representative Kinney.
Yes.
Representative Kinney, yes. Representative Harrington. Representative Harrington, absent. Representative Corey. Representative Corey, absent. Representative Dollop.
Yes.
Representative Dollop, yes. 11 in favor of the motion, 0 opposed to the motion, and 2 members absent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Karen. Motion to table is successful. Unanimous, those present. I believe, Sam, that's the end of the bills we have on our list for today. I'll defer to Chairman Lucchini if there's anything else on the agenda we have to cover today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that is it for today. just want to make a note that we did adjust a lot of things tomorrow based on some conflicting schedules. So afternoon's gambling. Morning, we're going to have a briefing from Department of Defense, as well as Secretary of State with this kind of fluid budget situation. So I think we're going to meet at 10 tomorrow, just so people know, with budget briefings now, and then go to afternoon gambling stuff. So.
Representative Wood.
When you say afternoon, is that 1 p.m.? Is that what you're planning on, or something earlier than that?
Yeah, I think we scheduled one. Yeah. Okay. So we can do a lunch break or whatever, and then take up the gambling bills at 1.
Okay. Any other announcements or comments from committee? All right. Seeing none, then we'll conclude for the day. Thank you all for your hard work today.